Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We have here, I suppose you could call it a cautionary tale. It's a woman who grew up as a woman and then eventually, 8 years ago, decided that being a woman was not for her and she'd like to become a man. Now, I'm going to maintain she and her through this because biologically she's a woman. I'm going to be consistent because when I'm talking about men who transfer, I always talk about him. So just for consistency, I'm going to keep referring to her as a her. But she's tried to become a man and she's found it very difficult. She says she's very lonely. And she said that being a man is hard. Well, of course it's being hard. You did not grow up as a man from a boy. You didn't grow up entering a male-oriented world, having to learn the rules, knowing you're still a boy and getting away with a lot of stuff because of your boyish features. You became a girl, you became a young woman very much quicker than a boy becomes a young man. And nature does that for a reason, because the rules of man are very, very hard, physically demanding. You say the wrong thing, bang, you get it. You do the wrong thing, punch. You get this. It's very physical. And so nature found a way. It retained the boyish, childlike features of a young boy much longer to give the boys the fighting chance to learn all the rules before they're considered full men. And if they don't know the rules then they're arseholes, and that's how it is with men. But men also have the ego that women don't have. The male ego is something to behold in glory. Everything is a contest. Everything's a fight. You can't be the biggest, fastest, strongest, but you can be better in that. You've got a slightly better car. You've got a very slightly bigger house. Your suit cost a little bit more. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always a bigger fish, but there's always something you look for because you need to feel good. And so you go, yeah, I've got a slightly better car. And that's the male ego. Now, that's all very fine and pleasant if you're a man, but if you're a woman who's suddenly become a man, you haven't got that training. You can't deal with it. You don't know the male psyche. And this woman here, and I'm going to be very honest, I'm a human being, and I do feel sorry for her. She's made a choice. It's turning out to be the wrong choice. She's regretting it. She's lonely. She doesn't know what to do about it. Now, one could quite easily say, well, you made your bed and lie in it, And, of course, yes, she has made her bed. She must lie in it or transition back. But it is a sad indictment because you can guarantee that this woman probably wasn't given full psychiatric evaluations. She probably wasn't told about all the differences that being a man would be to her. She probably wasn't aware of how hard it is to be a man. She just sees all the fun and palaver without realising that 90% of that is BS. And it's actually a lot harder than you'd think, And so she's gone along with this. Probably been pushed along with those groups that push this thing. They have their agendas to push. And go, oh, yes, we'll encourage you down. And at any moment you say, actually, I'm not sure and I want to stop, they treat you like, something they've stepped in. Oh, you become the enemy. The moment you say you're going to stop, you become the enemy. And so a lot of these people are bullied into it. And I think that's possibly what's happened here. But we'll take a look at this article. And I'm going to do so for once, just with a little bit of sympathy for her. But it is telling. And I think she's probably made a decision that she shouldn't have made. And I think this needs to be shown to everyone thinking of changing, because I think it'll be a real eye-opener. So here goes. So nobody told me how lonely being a man is. Men will go in groups. Men will form clubs and packs and, we'll go off and we'll do things together. But yeah, every man has to always be on his guard against every other man. We all know this, us men watching this. Ladies, trust me, it's very hard. It isn't easy being green. It certainly isn't easy being a man. You have your friends, yeah. But when you're out in company or you walk into a place and you don't know anyone, you've got to walk in. But you've got to walk in with confidence. You've got to be confident walking in, because men smell fear. It's biological. It's evolution. There's nothing you can do about it. And so you walk in. You've got to walk in confident. You go up there. Hi, how you doing? Oh, yeah, whatever. And you'll be okay. But you walk in, you're a bit shifty looking, and people pick up on it. It's very, very dangerous world out there when you're a man. Anyway, transgender man weeps while explaining how much easier it was to make friends with open, vulnerable women and says he can see why the self-ending rate among males is higher. Now, let me just zoom that in one more. Oh, wrong one. Let me zoom this in one more. Slightly easier to read with my very old ancient eyes. Now, had I just caught the headline there, my first line would have been, oh, he's after vulnerable women. Because I would have assumed, when I saw that it would have been a man pretending to be a woman looking for vulnerable women. But I actually realise that it's a woman who's trying to be a man who says it's only vulnerable women who'll put up with him. And so, yeah, I can actually see how that would work from a psychological point of view. A clip of a weeping transgender man or woman has swept the internet after she cried while saying how much harder it was to strike up meaningful friendships as a man than it had been as a woman. James Barnes, not a real name, who was born female but transitioned to male 8 years ago, works as a life coach to help others going through the life changes. She recently opened up about the challenges she's faced since becoming a man, especially loneliness. Breaking down in tears, Barnes said, "No one told me how lonely being a man is." She said, "I had closer friendships with random women I met in a bathroom at clubs before I transitioned because of how open women are, than I have had in my 8 years of transitioning, because women are just so much more vulnerable and deep than men." Yeah, I'd go along with that. What are men like? Ooh, boobs. You know, not gay men, obviously. I'm talking about straight men. I'm talking about the vast proportion of men. But they're going to be going like, oh, pie, beer, boobs, sport. You know, they're the four churches of men, really, isn't it? Once you get past that, then you start getting to the deep stuff, you know. But, you know, top drawer, they're the four. Anyway, we knew what depth felt like before we transitioned. We knew what it felt like to have people want to hug us, and to have people want to talk to us, and to have a community. And then you transition, and you're just a guy walking down the street that people cross the street so they're not near you. Friendships are so much harder to build, and people are colder. Barnes, who was also a motivational speaker, said while holding back her tears, "I also now understand why the self-ending rate is so much higher with men, because this shit is lonely." He says, "I'm an emotionally matured," he says, "man but woman. I know how to build friendships, and it's still really hard." And there she is. Now, if you was walking down the street and you didn't know, and you weren't paying attention, you'd pass as a man. But of course, not a man. And the big problem, and this is a problem that yet a lot of people have never really addressed. She becomes a man. So who's going to be interested in her? Because you see, a straight woman isn't going to want a woman's body. A gay woman isn't going to want someone with a beard who looks like that. A straight man certainly isn't going to want someone who looks like that. And a gay man isn't going to want someone with a vagina. And so that's what these people tend to have. Now, this particular one isn't got a problem. He is married. She is married. God, I keep doing this. She's married. She's got in a relationship. And she managed to find someone who will put up with it. But for a vast portion of them, loneliness is massive. They just cannot get partners. Anyway, the trans influencer, who's married to her wife Courtney, posted the video with the caption, "Here I am, extremely vulnerable, posting something live on the internet as a bridge. Women and marginalised groups have every right to feel cautious with men. There are terrible, dangerous men we have to stop. But there's also men who are human and who are not immune to the coldness or lack of empathy, and those who are not dangerous to have to pick up the broken pieces, often alone." She says, "I want to bring awareness that we have stripped men of being empathetic, vulnerable and kind, yet demean them for only knowing anger, aggression and the V word." And she's right. And it is a sad case. And, you know, nobody's telling these people. This is what's bad. Men or the ones who actually go fully through with the operations. Until you've had the operation, you don't count. You know, you're just someone with a mental issue. If you actually go through with the operation, you know, as a man and off it comes, much more sympathy for you because you had, pardon the expression, you've had the balls to do it. But nobody tells you the problems. And we see time and time again all these people that have gone through this and immediately regretted it, because what they thought they were getting is nothing like what they were expecting, because they're suddenly biologic. Oh look, I've got boobs, I've got no bits down there, but inside they're still men. And this is a woman who's gone, oh look, I've got my beard, I've got a manly body, I've lost my boobs, and she's still a woman. She thinks like a woman, she emotes like a woman, and she can't help it because she's a woman. And that is the big problem, and that is why these people who push this, especially on the young, are so dangerous and so damaging. Well, I hope she finds peace, I hope she finds friends. I don't have a problem with emotion. I have a problem with the abuse of what happens, which is why, I say about these men doing it when they're still all intact and wanting access to women's changing rooms. That's wrong. That's quite wrong. But I even think here, if that is a woman with a woman's body, she's still a woman, and that's it. And that's the problem. They're pushing these people down it. It's a very different video for me, isn't it? Normally I kind of get angry about this, but in this particular case I do feel sorry for her. Anyway, I shall round off and come up. Now, I've done several videos about transitioners who've detransitioned, who are now currently suing the NHS, it must be said. There's a few boy to girl and a few girl to boy. They've all regretted it, and they've all said that one of the biggest problems they've had is that people are very happy to tell them how easy it is physically, biologically to change. But it's only once they've transitioned, once they've changed, they've realised that the biggest problem, the biggest hurdle they've got is, it's not what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. They thought by having a male body that they'd somehow become men, or by having a female body they'd somehow become women. And they realise all of a sudden that the problem isn't the body, the problem is in the mind. And as soon as they've done it, they've regretted it, because now they're no longer who they were, and they can never be that person again. And they've thrown away everything they've had, and then still not right, because they've changed the body, but they still can't change what's inside. And that's the big lie. That's the massive lie that's being told by all these groups like Stonewall, the big pressure groups that push this on and say, oh no, it's totally fine to accept it. And we see time and time again, it is not totally fine to accept it. It is so damaging. And that is why so many people self-end when they've gone through this kind of procedure. I think that's where really it needs to be completely controlled. And it must be full psychological evaluation, not just self-representation. Oh, I'm a lady now. No, you have to get completely signed off on this, because it will be causing so many problems. Anyway, I shall stop there. Like I say, it's a very difficult subject. It's a very different sort of take from it from me. But I think in this particular case, it's someone who's realised the problems. And so I wish them well if they want to change themselves. Hey ho.